Why, hello there. I'm Austin. You probably don't know me, and I definitely don't know you, but I'm guessing you're in the mood for some sort of best games of 2025 type list. And would you look at that, I have one right here for you. I feel like I say this every year, but 2025 truly was a fantastic year for games, and I'm genuinely excited to share my 5 favorites with you. Despite the title, please treat this video as just that, a list of favorites from an everyman gamer like yourself who wasn't able to play everything under the sun. Even still, I fell in love with more games than I have time to discuss today. You're currently viewing an unranked montage of my honorable mentions. Games I played and enjoyed, but ones that settled somewhere in my top 10 rather than the top 5. The goal today is to convince you that the highlighted titles are worth your time and money. As such, please trust that I have no intention of spoiling these experiences for you. Rest assured, all footage is limited to the opening hours, and I promise to watch my words carefully. Alright, I can see you're getting a little impatient, and I agree. It's about time we get to the rankings. The original Hades was a bright spot during a stressful time for many back in 2020. I absolutely adored the game, and I've been very impatiently waiting for the full release of the sequel. Well, after over a year in early access, the time finally came for me to take the plunge with the 1.0 release of Hades 2 back in September. I'm so pleased to report that Supergiant did not disappoint. Hades 2 is every bit the masterpiece its predecessor was. What impressed me the most was the greatly expanded scope. Hades 2 is literally twice the size of the original. The first game had solid staying power, but repeatedly fighting through the same zones to defeat the same bosses eventually lost its novelty. Additional choice and variety are inherent to Hades 2's very structure, and distinct quirks to each area prevent them from blurring together. The larger roster of Olympians deepens both the story and gameplay, somehow improving on what was already the series' greatest strengths. It's easy to take Hades' trademark brand of patiently paced, unobtrusive storytelling for granted, yet I can't think of another game that can match what Supergiant accomplished back in 2020, let alone the victory lap they're currently enjoying in 2025. They somehow make it look easy to juggle dozens of character relationships without interrupting gameplay, despite featuring a seemingly endless supply of sharp character writing and sumptuous voice work. As a former Percy Jackson fanatic, I'm always delighted by Supergiant's interpretation of the mythology, whether it's a fresh reinvention of a classic figure or a clever bit of obscure trivia. Melinoe's quest to quell Kronos' rebellion and rescue her family may not be as immediately captivating as Zagreus' prison break, but it works masterfully as motivation to keep moving forward, with some great surprises along the way. Mechanically, Hades 2 asks players to be more deliberate in combat, a less spammable dodge, and the addition of a limited mana resource for magic-infused Omega attacks, make encounters feel more tactical. The endless possibilities for building out Melinoe's kit form such a satisfying core to the experience that I can't help coming back again and again. You never know what boons you'll be offered, but you can trust that some new overpowered combination is right around the corner. Hades 2 really embraces the just one more run, addictive loop of the roguelike genre. It's a good thing too. My insatiable desire to keep playing forever is only matched by Hades 2's refusal to close the curtains. Even after defeating the final boss, new mechanics and story beats continue to unfold for dozens of hours. There's so much to love about this formula that I almost forgot to call attention to the positively inspired artistic direction. I'm a sucker for Supergiant's trademark diegetic music in particular. The game looks like a painting in motion, yet combat remains shockingly readable no matter how hectic the action gets. Ultimately, the only thing holding Hades 2 back from ranking higher is that it feels like merely more Hades rather than something fundamentally novel. This raises unanswerable questions about the intent of a sequel. I may very well have been disappointed with a more radical departure. Who's to say? What constitutes the ideal sequel is up for debate, but it's tough to fault Supergiant Games for recognizing that they've already struck gold and could continue to mine for even greater riches with Hades 2. On the opposite side of the spectrum, Split Fiction is one of the most mechanically simple games I played this year, and it certainly can't lean on its storytelling chops. So what is it doing here at number 4? Instead of trying to elevate their game into some sort of high art, Hazelight wisely focused entirely on what matters most, that being the fun factor. Apologies if I'm late to the party, I missed the team's earlier titles, but I was taken aback at how successfully this roller coaster ride recaptured the childlike glee that video games used to give me back in the day. The premise, two aspiring authors sucked into their own sci-fi and fantasy worlds, is patently ridiculous, but the perfect excuse for the designers to unleash their creativity across a wildly inventive set of levels. The greatest sin a game can commit is boring the player. At least that's what the makers of Split Fiction believe. They've made it their personal mission to ensure the player can never predict what they're in store for each time they play. Just as I settle in to the current setting and gameplay style, I'm suddenly whisked away to a whole nother world with a completely new set of mechanics. The overall package is rooted in a 3D platformer framework, with satisfying air dashes, wall running, and grappling. But the individual levels and specific challenges within always bring a fresh twist to that base. One level you're armed with swords and spells, the next blasters and jetpacks. The pacing is impeccable, with side story interstitials mixed into the larger levels as palate cleansers. These bite-sized scenarios are always a surprise. You never know where our writers' wild imaginations will take you. The full range of gaming genres is on the table, from horror to arcade and stealth to side-scroller. Split Fiction never takes its feet off the gas, and that ambitious unpredictability is its greatest strength. I typically prefer gaming to remain a solitary activity, but this year I learned to appreciate the unique appeals of cooperative play. I recruited my brother-in-law to join me for Elden Ring Night Rain on top of a Resident Evil 5 replay, and we had a blast in both. For Split Fiction, however, I asked my younger sister to join me for a special sibling bonding session. Despite my best efforts, her gaming taste has yet to make the jump out of the platformer genre, but I figured Split Fiction might be a good bridge. I may have had to call in a sub to get my hands on usable footage, those pesky camera controls, but my sister and I made some great memories together nevertheless. We were both grinning and laughing the whole time. When experienced with a partner player, even Zoe and Mio's cringy dialogue grew endearing, as a goldmine for inside jokes. Stuff like this makes me question just how much credit the game itself deserves. Couch co-op naturally invites fun banter, and thus more memorable moments with minimal input from the game itself. However, I've concluded that discounting Hazelight's contributions to this experience would be short-sighted. Cooperative play isn't just an afterthought in Split Fiction. The entire game is designed around two friends communicating and coordinating to overcome highly curated challenges. The best scenarios are those that empower each player with unique abilities that the other lacks, and thereby force the pair to combine their powers to move forward. This invites multiple playthroughs for one, but more importantly, it ensures that players learn to rely on each other. You simply cannot progress independently. The environments of Neon Revenge, one of the game's first levels, can only be manipulated by Zoe's cyber whip, and can only be fully maneuvered with Mio's gravity suit. This is asynchronous multiplayer at its most basic, but the idea is continually iterated upon until it feels like the two players are playing completely different games that somehow still overlap, like a Venn diagram. Split Fiction is not afraid to experiment with the very bounds of what is possible within this cooperative framework, culminating in a climax that you've got to see to believe. The game can't be played solo, and much of the appeal will be lost if partnered with a random online stranger. If circumstances require you play online, I insist you do so with a microphone and someone you are fully comfortable being silly with. However, it's hard for me to imagine such a setup could fully replicate the magic of playing side by side with your player too. I cherish the memories I was able to make playing with my sister, and can only hope that others get the chance to experience the same thing with their loved ones. Longtime viewers know that I'm a sucker for a good logic puzzle game, so much so that I once dedicated a whole video to Minesweeper likes. It didn't get many views. Just this year, that obsession led me to the excellent new Rikabe world, and YouTube legend Mathematosis' own devilishly difficult logic bombs. No knock against conventional level-based puzzlers like these, but there's something truly special about a game that eschews such a rigid structure, and fully embraces the potential of an interactive medium. Games that manage to successfully intertwine puzzles into a more dynamic, immersive experience only come around once in a blue moon. We should count ourselves fortunate that 2025 delivered unto us the masterpiece that is Blue Prince. This game was an 8-year passion project from solo developer Tonda Ross, who was himself inspired by Christopher Manson's 1985 trailblazing choose-your-own-adventure book, Maze. Fun fact, I too was a fan of this book as a kid, and actually still have my childhood copy. Apparently it's quite the collector's item now. I had no idea. Hey, who put that there? True to its title, the book tasked readers, or more accurately players, to decipher increasingly cryptic hints and deduce the shortest path from room 1 to room 45 and back again. The solution is incredibly complex, not that I would know, to the point where a $10,000 bounty went unclaimed at the time of release. Blue Prince is tricky, don't get me wrong, but it is mercifully toned down from its predecessor. Your objective is deceptively simple, charting a path to the secret 46th room of a 45-room mansion. The twist? Each day, the layout of the mansion is reset, before being rebuilt by the player through a drafting system. Every door presents 3 random possible rooms to choose from, and the mansion is assembled piece by piece over a 9x5 grid like a jigsaw puzzle. While the overall floor plan refreshes daily, individual rooms behave consistently run to run, rewarding master architects who learn when and where to draft them for maximum value. For example, if you need to expand, then a hallway may be appropriate, but if you have space to spare, then a closet with potentially valuable items may be your best bet. Many rooms house self-contained secrets within, but each room also interacts with its neighbors in grander, all-encompassing, mansion-wide puzzles. Sometimes just noticing a suspicious pattern that gives rise to a new mystery is a eureka moment unto itself, which is then magnified tenfold once you eventually arrive at the solution. Blue Prince thrives on this sense of mind-expanding discovery. I wouldn't dare spoil any such revelations, so I'll instead focus on the strategic aspects. Poor planning can cut a run short all too easily. You always have to be looking a few steps ahead, and leave yourself contingencies for when the RNG doesn't work out in your favor. Your ability to manage resources is also put to the test. Upper rank doors often require keys to open, specialized rooms cost gems to draft, and even your limited step count should be considered a precious currency. Navigating the mansion is like piloting a board game piece. You only have a certain number of moves to explore, gather the resources needed, and arrive at the finish line. This effectively adds a sense of urgency, while still allowing players to take their time studying their surroundings and taking notes on potential clues. The randomness of the drafting system seems to be the most contentious aspect of Blue Prince, but I'd argue it encourages players to remain flexible in their exploration, rather than hyperfixating on one puzzle at a time. I don't know of any other roguelike puzzle games, but the two genres mesh surprisingly well. Beginning each day with a blank slate and unknown possibilities in Blue Prince is just as exciting as in Hades 2. I will admit that it can be frustrating when a promising run ends in failure through no obvious fault of your own, but I learned to shift my perspective. Instead of beginning each day with the goal of reaching room 46, and inevitably feeling like I wasted my time when I failed to do so, I instead focused on learning as much about the mansion's inner workings as possible. In that sense, every single run was a success, and before long, I was fully equipped to make it to room 46 in style. I believe that anyone can accomplish this if they put their mind to it, but honestly, room 46 is just the tip of the iceberg. The game's moody atmosphere and compelling roguelike structure had me hooked, enticing me to keep digging deeper to complete my trophy room. That day 1 challenge was something else, let me tell you. After over 70 hours of playtime, not to mention a bit of online help for the more elaborate post-game puzzles, you'd think I'd seen all that Blue Prince has to offer, but that couldn't be further from the truth. The rabbit hole goes far deeper than I had any hope of reaching, and I hear that some mysteries still remain unsolved. Blue Prince isn't a game for everyone, but if any of this piqued your interest, I really hope you undertake the Mount Holly challenge. For those brave enough, it's a once-in-a-generation experience unlike anything you've played before. This next game is one I'm sure you're familiar with. As the winner of a record-breaking 9 superlatives at the Game Awards, including the top prize, Clair Obscur Expedition 33 hardly needs my endorsement. This game is the whole package. It does just about everything right, and I have a hard time imagining any lover of games not enjoying their time with it. The story got its hooks in me early, and continued to captivate all the way to the bitter end. Each year in the city of Lumiere, an unknowable deity paints the next number in an ongoing countdown. Anyone who has reached that age then spontaneously disappears in a phenomenon known as the gommage. We follow Expedition 33, the latest in a long line of courageous young adventurers on a quest to put an end to this cycle before time runs out. Tragedy is inevitable, but the game deftly handles these mature themes and treats its characters with the care they deserve. Thanks to exceptional writing and performance work, our main expedition crew is incredibly well realized. They're such a charismatic bunch, it's hard not to grow attached and invested in their journey. I picked up Clair Obscur based entirely on word of mouth, but I admit it was with some trepidation. I'm not very good at taking recommendations in general, and Japanese role-playing games have never been my thing. This is a French production, of course, but I still expected the game to maintain the infamously long and grindy traditions of classic JRPGs. Imagine my delight when Clair Obscur single-handedly dismantled all my reservations with the genre. The main story clocks in somewhere around 30 hours, which is refreshingly manageable. In fact, I was actually left wanting more, and the fine folks at Sandfall provided that too, with a wealth of optional areas and challenging post-game fights. If that focused runtime has you concerned, rest assured a completionist can easily extract double that playtime, with a reliable guarantee of quality all the way through. I'm not opposed to turn-based combat in principle, but to be honest, it's often something I put up with rather than something I earnestly enjoy. Once again, Clair Obscur forced me to completely reevaluate that stance with its innovative combat system. Good timing and reflexes allow players to power up their attacks and dodge incoming damage. If you're really on point, you can even parry your opponent's offense, both awarding you mana for your next turn and shattering the cardinal JRPG rules by inflicting massive damage back on your foe during their own turn. Skilled play is rewarded with near constant access to your party's most powerful moves, and flashier battles as a result. This hybridization of active elements in a turn-based framework makes the whole system exponentially more engaging to a player like me. Each party member is mechanically distinct with well-implemented unique gimmicks, and the Pictos system brings a high degree of customization in catering builds to your exact specification. Don't worry, the strategic benefits inherent to turn-based combat are alive and well alongside the twitchy reflex tests. The environments are enjoyable to navigate if a bit repetitive in their twisty structure. Forgoing the minimap may be a controversial choice, but I can see the vision. This exploration would grow dull without the need to rely on your own spatial awareness. Shout out to the music too. I don't have the vocabulary to properly praise it, but man, this soundtrack goes hard and really elevates the proceedings. Expedition 33 just does everything so well. As a true Renaissance game, it almost defies criticism. The game looks, feels, and plays better than any AAA release this year, but was actually born from a very modest core team of 30 to 40 passionate developers, with an estimated budget sub 10 million. If you know anything about game development, you'll recognize what a miraculous achievement that is. It's games like Clair Obscur Expedition 33 that give me hope for the future of this industry. The competition was strong this year, but one game managed to rise above the rest. As much as I loved all the games discussed thus far, there was never any doubt in my mind about which game deserved the top spot. My 2025 Game of the Year is Hollow Knight Silksong. It's been a long wait, with my expectations grown out of control after literal years of anticipation, but Team Cherry somehow managed to meet and even exceed those impossibly high expectations. It's absolutely positively unbelievable what this three-person team was able to accomplish here. The original Hollow Knight is one of my all-time favorite games, and yet I can say with confidence that Silksong surpasses it. Everything great about Hollow Knight is back, bigger, better, and more beautiful than before. Farloom is staggering in its scale, almost dwarfing Hollow Nest, but also staggering in the care and attention to detail put into every square inch. Each region is visually and mechanically distinct, but they all come together to create a cohesive kingdom caught in religious fervor. Exploring a world on the brink of collapse is even more compelling than wandering the ruins of Hollow Nest. The increased focus on side quests, or wishes, might have the appearance of shallow filler content, but I really appreciated how they subtly transformed Hornet from an independent outsider to a savior, with a personal stake in this kingdom's plight. Every interaction with a misguided pilgrim adds so much depth to the story being told, not to mention their adorable designs and voice work that go a long way toward fostering that protective attitude in the player. I loved Hornet's characterization in general. The knight was intentionally a blank slate, but Hornet's personality is front and center. The frequently sassy journal musings and utter inability to hold back an invigorating battle cry are particularly endearing. Her nimble acrobatics are a fantastic evolution on the gameplay side as well. After earning a few movement abilities, Hornet feels absolutely sublime to control. She's lightning fast, perfectly responsive, and endlessly expressive. Traversal encourages creativity and style, and combat benefits from a highly customizable loadout. Crests fundamentally alter Hornet's pin attacks, while countless interchangeable tools make for potent sidearms tailored to whatever challenge she faces. These are smart evolutions of Hollow Knight's nail arts and charm system that make combat even more rewarding. In case this wasn't clear, I adore the platforming and combat in Hollow Knight, so this level of advancement was neither necessary nor expected. Hornet's prowess is put to the test in significantly tougher encounters that will humble even Hollow Knight veterans. The boss fights are a consistent highlight that transform combat into an elegant dance. Unfortunately, the pre-established spoiler rules prevent me from showing off my favorites, but Lace here gives a good idea of what I mean. Establishing this level of fluidity in cycling through attacks and openings while remaining fair and readable is not something to take for granted. Team Cherry sits right alongside the masters over at FromSoft as the best boss designers working today. Silksong's punishing difficulty has come under a lot of fire lately, but to me this is a feature, not a problem that needs to be solved. Of course, I sympathize with those that will miss out on a masterpiece due to the extreme challenge it's now infamous for. That being said, I personally have a bit of a masochistic side with games like this, and relish such a challenge. The flood of adrenaline after a hard-fought victory is so much sweeter when the game makes you work for every inch of progress. Even the common fodder enemies deserve your respect, which is all fine and well until you're faced with a horde all at once. These encounters are the closest Silksong gets to being unfair, but if you can attain that supremely satisfying flow state of reactive dodging, weaving, and wiping off sweat-drenched palms, you'll come out on top all the stronger for it. I'm a junkie for this combat system, but even more so for Silksong's best-in-class map design. Team Cherry deserves kudos for trusting players enough to let them get truly lost in their labyrinthine creation. I've come to discover that this is honestly my biggest turn-on in a video game. When you're on the edge of your seat, locked in, cautiously venturing into the unknown, guessing what lies around each corner, all the while desperately trying to form a mental map of an intricately designed level, that's the good stuff. It isn't an exaggeration to say that each player is forging their own path through the world either. Farloom is incredibly non-linear, and intentionally so. The path to the Citadel is home to many possible skips and alternate routes, and then the leash is completely removed once you reach Act 2. Half the bosses are totally optional, and even full-featured zones are kept hidden as a surprise for dedicated players. Secrets abound to reward backtracking and mindfulness while exploring. I could go on and on and on, there's so much to love about Silksong, but I've got to call it somewhere. Hopefully you got the picture. It's self-centered to say, but Silksong genuinely feels like it was made just for me. It's as though the game was catered to my exact preferences. Team Cherry brewed up the quintessential Austin game, then gifted it to me for the criminally low price of $20 with the promise of free DLC next year. Can't wait. They're either running a charity or a money laundering operation over there, I swear. Either way, I'm astounded by how close their game comes to perfection. It shouldn't be possible for a game to be this good. Silksong is not only the game of my year, but a strong contender for the game of my life. And that's a wrap on 2025. What a lineup we had, and yet I'm confident there are still some hidden gems out there that I missed. I'd love to hear some audience recommendations in the comments. It's always fascinating to see how diverse individual taste can be. Each year, I also assemble a top 10 movies list, so please check my film recommendations out too if you're interested. That ranking is posted on my Patreon page right now, available to all as a special freebie. Speaking of, thank you to my patrons Axel Dieker and Andreas Schouten for your loyalty and continued support this year. And to you there watching this video, I really appreciate you tuning in, and hope you enjoyed our time together as much as I did. It's nice to take a break from the big analytical retrospectives, and just do something more casual and contemporary. Don't worry, I'm not stepping away from the long-form love letters to yesterday's favorites that you know me for. The third entry in my Pokemon series is coming along nicely. You should see it in your feed before too long. And I've got many more exciting plans for 2026. I hope to see you then.